eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Sing it out this morning. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see. Just keep singing that up this morning. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see. Just keep singing that. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Strength for us as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Strength for us as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Sing strength will rise. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Our God, you reign forever. Our hope, our strong deliverer. You are the everlasting God. The everlasting God. You do not faint, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Wait upon. Sing that again. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon. Strength that's only in Him. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Our God, you reign forever. Our hope, our strong deliverer. You are the everlasting God. The everlasting God. You do not faint, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence
bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you, and I'm lost without you. This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence living in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and I'm desperate for you, and I'm lost without you, and I'm desperate for you, and I'm lost without you.
Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. With every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake, Lord, have your way in me. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake, Lord, have your way in me.
When the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart, and I'll bring you song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within. Through the way things appear, you're looking into my heart. And I'm coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. When the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. And I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within. Through the way things appear, you're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I made it when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. Coming back to heart of worship when it's all about you, yes. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.
King of endless worth,
And no one
could express how much you deserve.
Though I'm weak and poor, all I have is yours. Every single breath.
King of endless worth,
you than this words. No one could express how much you deserve. Though we can pour, all I have is yours, every single breath. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself, it's not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart.
Coming back.
I'm coming back to the heart of worship, when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made it, when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus.
Ready or not, here we go. I have to confess as I start, there's a confession I need to make. Thursday after a blaze, I was walking home. It was, late, dark. And I come to the lights by River Road, that is, right? Yeah, Junoto River, where the Shell gas stations are. And I jaywalked. No cars. And as soon as I started crossing the street, it was about 5 seconds before the light would have turned green. So I went against the reds. And a couple steps into crossing the street, I thought, I'm preaching on a topic of waiting this Sunday. I couldn't wait for those 5 seconds for the light to turn green. I had to get across soon. I mean, it was chilly and I can make up all kinds of excuses why I did it. But I went against a red light because I couldn't wait for longer. Then, same week, Vera's, putting on some boots. Too many laces, that lacing is taking forever on those boots. I just couldn't just sit around or stand around waiting. I had to go outside already and get moving. Waiting, why is it so tough? Some of you are much better at it. I've gotten worse the older I've grown. Just gotten worse and worse and worse. I used to be pretty good at it. As a kid, waiting for Dad to get home so that we could have dinner. Even waiting for Christmas. Because although it was really, you were counting days and you were counting hours till Christmas, but it was filled with anticipation. It was filled with joy. And there was this excitement about that waiting. Well, now, as we had our small kids back in Vancouver, they were still small, I got to experience that joy of waiting again. But otherwise, waiting just seems to be rougher and tougher. I don't know what it is. So today, I'm preaching to myself mainly. Waiting, anticipating, expecting something. Proverbs 13:12 says, "Hope deferred makes a heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life." So even here, it's recognized that when your hope is deferred, when you have to wait, it can lead to a point where your heart gets sick. And then when it's fulfilled, it's like everything becomes alive. And this joy fills you, right? Yet, it seems looking at the biblical perspective of waiting, that there's a lot of waiting in the Bible. Think about the times that people just have to wait in the Bible. Everybody seems to be waiting. And then there's these spurts of action, these periods of action, but there's a lot of waiting in between. I thought about a few in the Bible, and there's so many more, but just a few. And when you read their story, you understand that it has to do with them being transformed. It's for their own good. Their character is being formed while they're waiting. Their relationship with God is deepened. Their faith is being strengthened while they're waiting. So all kinds of good things happen. And then we read about the results. It's like so many times when we read about the success stories in our time, about people who make it, so to speak. We learn about them and we see them in the media and everywhere else in the public once they've made it. But oftentimes what interests me more is the backstory, the origin story. What was the pathway to that point? Because that had a lot of trials and errors and tests and waiting often involved, didn't it? Until they actually made it. Same is true about the heroes of faith in the Bible. David was anointed king, as you know. And then he has to wait. He even becomes a fugitive. He goes on the run before he's crowned king. He was anointed, but he had to wait till he actually became the king of Israel. Moses in the wilderness for 40 years, wondering what happened. What was that about? Probably ceased wondering at some point. Just didn't think about anything. 40 years until the promise started taking place. The promise that was over his life, the words that had been spoken over his life actually became a reality in his life. Abraham and Sarah, waiting for that child. Abraham was 70 when he got the promise. Now think about that. He was 70 when he was promised that they would still become pregnant and get a child, a boy. And after that, you'd think that at 70 when God says something, it's going to happen pretty soon. Like he's going to move on it. No, for 30 years, Abraham's still waiting. To the point of he resorts to some, maneuverings of his own to help God make the promise happen. But he kept on having faith, he kept on hoping, and so they actually saw Isaac born then. Jacob waits for Rachel. And while he waits, he serves his father-in-law. Joseph is in prison for 14 years for something he never did. Waiting for God to move, for him to be released, for something new to happen in his life. 14 years in prison. No fault of his own. Noah. Now, here's a cool story, isn't he? 120 years building a boat. And the kids are born and they're wondering what water. And their children are born and Noah's talking about a flood and they're going like, we've got a granddad who's a little woohoo. I mean, water, what is that? They hadn't seen any. And he's talking about a flood. And he's building this boat in the front yard. Talk about waiting 120 years, man. Oh, incredible. And Jesus waited for 30 years. He was a son of God. Think about the restraint, the self-control, all the waiting that he had to do. He was 30 till he started his public ministry. So, sometimes we wait for something that is good to start, right? For it to begin the good stuff to actually start happening. But sometimes waiting has to do with waiting for something bad to end. In the life of Israel, for example, they were in exile. They were oppressed. They were slaves in Egypt, for example. And they were waiting for that to come to an end. And then, after they got the kings, they asked for kings. They had the warning, they still wanted a king. And then all these bad kings keep on popping up. who did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So they had to always wait that king out for a good king to come in place so that good stuff could start happening, so that things would be turned around. Sometimes we're waiting for bad things to come to an end so that something good can actually begin. A lot of waiting. So when to wait and when to act. Well, what does Jesus tell his disciples? After his resurrection, by the way, why do we believe in Jesus? Because he was raised from the dead. He's alive, resurrected. That's why we have faith in Jesus. That's the reason. So after he was resurrected, before he ascended to heaven, what did he tell his disciples? Go and make disciples, he said. Go and make disciples. You know, baptize, teach them everything so that they could live according to everything I've taught you. But wait first. Wait for it. You're going to be clothed with power from above, from on high. But wait for it first. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Again, you know, a promise. Something's going to start moving forward. Something's going to start happening. But wait for it first. Wait for it. Seems like a very common theme in the Bible, doesn't it? Anybody have problems with waiting besides me? Some hands came up really quick. I like that. You weren't waiting to give an answer. Some of you are still thinking, could I, should I? So you're good at waiting. We'll meet afterwards. You can help me out. You can help me out. Okay. So we need to understand the importance of waiting and some of the dynamics that go on while we're waiting to help us endure the waiting, because there is a prize, there is a reward when we wait for it, right? It's because of the reward that we continue waiting. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. You wouldn't just keep on waiting for something that you never have hope for it even happening or taking place. Well, sometimes we do that as well. Okay, so what's all the waiting about? Because there's so much of it going on. Who's waiting for the next iPhone to be released, for example, already? Like, you're in trouble. You've got serious problems. Oh boy, it's still a far, far, far away. Far away. You know, the right girl or boy to come along, and then to get married, then to have kids, then to see the grandchildren. And some people are waiting to graduate so that you can then wait for the job, so that then you can wait for a promotion, so that you can wait for a raise, so that you can wait for the retirement, so that you can wait for... Man, it's just constant, isn't it? Always waiting for something. And something else. It's always something else that we're waiting for. Something better. Always waiting for something else. Oh, right now waiting for the summer, which Peter, I know, is just around the corner. So waiting is a given. Waiting is a given. There's no escaping it. It's just part of our lives. We actually have gone to lengths to distract ourselves from the pain of waiting, from the suffering of waiting, having to endure the sense of waiting, haven't we? I mean, nowadays even I catch myself. I'm somewhere, I'm sitting on my own, and what do I find myself doing? Pulling out the phone. Like, for a few seconds I'm thinking, I'm just going to sit here and actually cultivate some deep thinking. But the phone comes out because I want to be distracted. I've trained my brain to be distracted so that I wouldn't have to wait. Oh boy. So you can see that this is a bit of a problem for me. But what are we waiting for? That's a big question, because waiting is a given, but what are you waiting for? Is it worth waiting for? We'll come back to that a little later. And while you're waiting, how are you going about the waiting? What are you doing while you're waiting? What is happening while you're waiting? How are you going about the waiting? And not giving up while you're waiting. That's a big challenge sometimes, isn't it? Especially when it comes to promises of God. Not to give up while you're waiting. Into the temptation of shortcuts, or then actually fully just giving up. God keeps us in the waiting room. So often we're in the waiting room. Here, it seems that when you go to the doctors, the wait is a long wait. We're talking about sometimes hours. Vera was there with one of our kids, 3 hours I think it was. More. Oh, yeah. In the waiting room. No wonder it's called the waiting room. But God keeps us in the waiting room sometimes. Prayers, we haven't gotten answers to them yet. We're in the waiting room. We're waiting for healing in relationships maybe. We're in the waiting room regarding that. Or healing in the mind, in the body, in the soul. We're in the waiting room regarding all of that. We're waiting for clarity and direction from God to come, for wisdom. And we're waiting for it. We're waiting for it. We're waiting for that open door that has been spoken about. And so we're waiting for stuff. A delay. But we're waiting because there is that reward that we know is just around the corner somewhere. It is waiting for us. If we continue waiting, we will come to it. God will bring it to us. But it's the in-between time that is the tough stuff. And that's why, seeking. That's what we do while we wait. We seek, we knock. We're waiting for something to happen. That's why we knock. We ask because we know that there is something out there. And so we keep on asking, we keep on waiting for that answer to arrive. And we keep on seeking until we find it, right? No point starting seeking for something unless you're going to actually see it through until you get it. And so that requires waiting. What would happen if God always answered all our prayers? No, let's put it this way. Say we talk just about the prayers that are according to God's goodwill in our lives. And every time we prayed, when we prayed those prayers, God was always immediately answer us. What would happen to us? We'd become spoiled, selfish brats. Most of you said amen. That's good self-awareness. That's good recognition right there. So, why do we wait? What are the benefits of waiting? Well, we wait because sometimes it's just because there's a natural delay between sowing and harvesting, right? Between planting and seeing the fruit. Between scattering and gathering. There's waiting. It's just a natural part of these different seasons. But once again, we wait because there is a harvest, because there is fruit, because there is something that is the reward. That's why we keep on waiting. But it comes down to understanding, discerning what season we're in. What season are you in regarding some things? It's not as if your whole life is just one season. There's different seasons in your life regarding different things, right? You plant different things in different times, depending, for example, where you live. Sometimes you can plant a couple times a year and expect to harvest a couple times a year. Sometimes when you live in colder climates, the seasons look a little different. So, and regarding different things in our lives, there are different seasons going on. So what season are you in regarding that thing that you're thinking about right now? Or those things in your life that are really important to you? What season are you in? Ask for discernment if you don't know, because it will help. It will drive you absolutely crazy, mad, frustrated if you think that it's harvest season and there's no fruit to be harvested. There's nothing out there. Because maybe it's a season for planting, for sowing, just to get the seed out there. And if you don't understand it, you won't even be doing the right thing in the right season. And then you will never see the harvest. Because you didn't do the sowing when you were supposed to do the sowing. Or maybe the plant it's out there, but it needs trimming, it needs pruning, it needs care. And maybe that's the season, so that then you can see a plentiful harvest, and God will open that door for you. And by the way, when it comes to the harvesting of the souls, That's a little bit of a different deal, isn't it? Because it seems that Jesus said, it's always harvest time when it comes to souls. There's never an excuse why you can't tell about Jesus to somebody else. So don't let the enemy fool you about that, to thinking that you just need to wait around and sit back and just enjoy life and there's no harvest out there. When it comes to souls, it's always harvest time. Come on. Always time to share Jesus, share the gospel, help bring people closer to Jesus, point them towards him. Always that time. So we wait because there's a delay between planting and the fruit and sowing and harvesting and scattering and gathering. And we wait because you don't know what battles are going on in the unseen world, so that the answer can get through. You know, the enemy doesn't want God's good to get to you. He tries to prevent it. And sometimes all he needs to do is distract us. And the good came, but we never noticed it. We weren't aware because we weren't waiting. A big part of waiting is staying alert. Right? Talking about the servants and how they need to be waiting for their master to come back from the wedding banquet. But the biggest part in that waiting was that they stay alert. That they're aware when it happens then. Right? But you don't know what battles are going on in the unseen. That's maybe why it's taking its time. You remember Daniel, right? 21 days. Till he received confirmation even about God hearing his prayer. 21 days. And he was wondering why. He was fasting. He was sure this was of God. He was certain. It was in the Word. He had a burden for it. He had everything laid out. 21 days, no confirmation, nothing. A hard ceiling. Nothing is breaking through. Absolutely nothing. Why? Because as it turns out, without him knowing, there was a battle being fought in the unseen world that actually ended up getting Archangel Michael involved. It was that kind of a battle before something could come through and before there was even some sort of encouragement from God to him. So sometimes a delay is not necessarily a denial from God's side. It's just a delay, because we don't know what is going on in the unseen world. Okay, well, it's worth waiting sometimes just because God is preparing me. And I think this is the biggest thing usually that happens in the waiting season, in the waiting time, in between things happening. God is preparing me. He has a better and a bigger idea of blessing you. As Paul says, you know, God gives way beyond anything that you can imagine even. Anything you can ask for. He always has better and bigger ideas of blessing you than you do. But in order for you to be able to carry and receive that blessing, sometimes he needs to prepare you. And it actually is always about preparing you. Because you are much more important and much more valuable than anything else that you can get or receive. You're it. You're the gold. You're the gold. And what is happening inside of you is the gold that God is after. Like Peter puts it like this in 1 Peter chapter 1 and verses 6 to 7. In this, like he's been talking about the final salvation and you know, our lives being completely holy, healed and made whole. So in this salvation, final salvation, you rejoice. Though now, for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, which is more precious than gold that perishes though it is tested by fire, so that the tested genuineness of your faith may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Christ Jesus. Waiting is also a test. Your faith is being put through serious waiting and sometimes suffering while waiting, so that it can be tested and proved genuine faith. Just like genuine gold. When it's burnt, all the impure materials are burnt away, and only the genuine, real gold is left. Right? That's what's happening in the waiting in your life. And Paul has some good encouragement about waiting. He uses the analogy of pregnancy. And this is the great chapter in Romans. You've gone through all the chapters up until this point, the long thought process arc that Paul builds, 6, 7, and then it culminates in chapter 8. And I'm reading out of the Message translation this time. All around us, you observe a pregnant creation. The difficult times of pain throughout the world are simply birth pangs. But it's not only around us, it's within us. We're also feeling the birth pangs. These sterile and barren bodies of ours are yearning for full deliverance. That is why waiting does not diminish us any more than waiting diminishes a pregnant mother. We are enlarged in the waiting. We, of course, don't see what is enlarging us, but the longer we wait, the larger we become, and the more joyful our expectancy. Isn't that encouraging? Meanwhile, what does the meanwhile always mean? Waiting. Meanwhile, between A and B, between A and Z, in the meantime, meanwhile, the moment we get tired in the waiting, God's Spirit is right alongside helping us. Hallelujah. He hasn't left us alone. If we don't know how or what to pray, it doesn't matter. He does our praying in and for us, making prayer out of our wordless sighs, our aching groans. He knows us far better than we know ourselves, knows our pregnant condition, and keeps us present before God. That's why we can also be sure that every detail in our lives of love for God is worked into something good. God knew what he was doing from the very beginning. He decided from the outset to shape our lives to those who love him, of those who love him, along the same lines as the life of his Son. So, that's the purpose of the waiting, so that our lives can start resembling Jesus more, so that we become more like Jesus, so that we start looking and sounding more like Jesus. That's why we wait. That's what's happening in the meantime. Because when your flight's delayed, what can you do about it? Does it help if you go... No, it just makes it more miserable, the waiting time. And more miserable for everybody around you. That's out of your control. What you can control is what you do in the meantime. In the meantime, in between, what are you doing then? Are you surrendering to God so that he can do the good work that he has planned to do inside of you, and that can continue forward? Waiting is always a season for listening and learning. Waiting is always a season to listen and to learn. And there's a reward always when you do that. Obviously, sometimes we wait for stuff that we shouldn't be waiting for, and it's not worth waiting for because it's actually outside of God, and it doesn't build us up, and we wait for the wrong things. So that's a lesson to be learned in itself. When God doesn't answer some prayers, maybe that's because we need to learn that isn't the will of God. That isn't, within the God's good rule and realm for you, his plans and purposes for you. And we wait for stuff that we actually already have. Maybe we didn't know that we have it already, or we forgot that we have it already. You've had those moments where a truth that has been so blatantly evident in the Bible, and you've heard about it hundreds and thousands of times, and you know it, then you know the truth, but you haven't fully understood what it means in your life. And you're praying for something, until you receive revelation of something that you already know. The revelation is that you already have it. For example, forgiveness of sin. All sin was dealt with at the cross. It was all dealt with at the cross. You are fully forgiven. Absolutely fully forgiven. It's already yours. You don't need to wait for that. You don't need to wait for open heavens. They were torn open. Jesus tore them open. We live under open heavens. Hallelujah. We don't need to wait for open heavens, for God's presence to come. God is here. God is with us. You might not feel it, and that's why you're praying for it, but it's yours. You don't need to wait for that. You don't need to wait for joy, because what is the Holy Spirit? If not joy, you have it, you possess it. It's yours. You don't need to wait for it. You don't need to wait for peace. You just need to walk in it. You need to understand that it is yours. Once again, in the Holy Spirit, you're born again, you have the Spirit of God inside of you, you have the peace of God. Love. It's been poured into your heart in the Holy Spirit. You don't have to wait for that stuff. Isn't that great? We don't have to wait for everything. Sometimes we wait for that stuff, but we should just walk in it. Just live it out. Just enjoy it. Simeon, Luke 2, verse 25 onwards. He's old. He's been waiting all his life. He's a righteous, devout man, upright and God-fearing. And he's been eagerly expecting the consolation for Israel to arrive. Because he knows people are weary, they're worn out, they're tired, they're oppressed, they're depressed. They've just been, and he's waiting for that consolation to arrive. Because God had revealed to him, made known to him, that he would not die before he sees that very thing happen. Before he can see and welcome that which he has been waiting for. Because he won't die before he witnesses what he has been so eagerly expecting to take place and happen. The Messiah, the consolation for the nation and for the whole world to arrive. You won't die until it happens. You will see it. Jesus said, you need to wait until you receive the power from on high. Until. There's often that until you receive. Until. Have you ever noticed that the devil never really urges you to wait? The devil really never says, oh, just wait for it. Just wait for it. Just wait for it. No, it's all about now. And all kinds of deceptive lies and things to try to, make you think that you can have it now. That's what the temptations for Jesus were largely about. Taking a shortcut, having everything happen to him now, the wrong way, not waiting for God's way, which included, by the way, a lot of suffering for him. Not waiting for that to take place. But right now. The only time the devil really wants you to wait is when there's an urgency from God for souls to be saved. That's when he's happy for you to come to church, sing a couple songs, go back home and come back next Sunday. Just wait. There's no rush and hurry about that stuff. Come on, you can wait it out. Let others do it and pave the way. And you're not ready for it yet. I mean, look at your character. How can you witness about Jesus to anybody? Wait. And just live in comfort and enjoy your life. But about other stuff, it's always about distraction, always about get it now. Don't wait for God to move. Rush into it. Because it requires faith to wait. It requires faith. But it's not about being idle. Did Noah wait idly? No, he was building the ark, right? He was building the boat while he was waiting. So waiting, something happens. Something is constantly happening. It's about being alert when we wait. Because you're waiting for something. You're constantly, the smallest sign, and you see it, you recognize it. Simon Peter with the others in the boat. Because there was Simeon, there has to be a Simon story as well, right? So Simeon was waiting for a long time. He was old. Simon was much younger, Simon Peter. with the other disciples in the boat. Jesus dismissed them, said, go on to the other side, Bethsaida, and we'll meet there. Jesus dismisses the crowds while they're in the boat already, making their way across the lake. And then Jesus withdraws into solitude, as he often did, to pray. Why? Because he waited upon the Lord. How are we strengthened? When we wait upon the Lord. When we wait upon the Lord, strength will rise, right? That's how the strength rises up, when we wait upon the Lord. So Jesus was waiting upon the Lord, but he was seeing the disciples from the mountain, from the hillside. He was seeing that the disciples were really struggling with the wind. The wind was against them. And, you can expect that kind of stuff to happen when you're disobedient, like Jonah was. He was supposed to go to Nineveh, but he goes into the exact opposite direction, out of disobedience to God. He doesn't want to do what God asks him to do because he doesn't, believe in the cause, and he thinks that they should just be punished, the people. And so he does the exact opposite and starts going towards Tarshish. But here you have Peter, Simon Peter, and the rest of the disciples doing something that Jesus actually asked them to do. But the wind turned against them. And they're waiting and they're tormented by this fruitless rowing. Nothing is happening. There is nothing going on here. And Jesus sees the pain. He sees it. But the wind is against them. They're obedient. They're not like Jonah, which you can understand, because if you're supposed to go to Nineveh and you start going towards Tarshish, something will happen. God will get your attention. God will make something happen so that he gets your attention. Sometimes we're waiting because we don't understand what God's will is, or we're trying to ignore it or neglect it. And so God has to bring a lot of frustration or something great, like an obstacle that we run against, so that we realize what his will is. Then you start moving towards the right direction and according to his will, and you find out that the wind still didn't calm down. It's not working with you. The wind isn't working with you. It's working against you. What is going on, God? First I was disobedient and stuff started going down. Now I'm obedient and the wind is still against me. And I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. But what would happen when you get to the other side if the wind was working with you? You'd give praise to the wind. But what happens when the wind is against you and it seems fruitless, but you have something from God? And this is always the key when it comes to waiting. It has to come from God. Don't wait for stuff that is out of yourself. That's just pointless stupidity, absolute nuts. But wait for stuff that you've received from God. And when you wait for that stuff, you're waiting for it. When you get to the other side, God shows up in the middle of all the struggle. He shows up. Who do you give your praise to? God. That's why sometimes the wind has to be against you, so that you can recognize and realize that it is always God. Always He's doing. Everything good in your life, only pride would claim otherwise, comes from God. And so you're waiting because you believe that there is a reward, and God is with you. Even though it doesn't feel like it, He's out there on the hillside, you're in the boat, you're struggling. But what did Jesus do? He was going to pass by them. Isn't that sneaky? He was going to pass. He was just going to go past, walking on water. But they cried out. Why? Because they were scrambling around looking for something. They were alert while they were waiting. They recognized Jesus immediately. First thought he was a ghost. Okay, let's give you that. But they cried out. And Jesus came to the rescue. So we're going to close off with Habakkuk. By the way, did you know that God is waiting? Jesus said that He wouldn't return until the gospel has been taken to every single nation, tribe, and language. He's waiting. We've been sloppy. God is waiting, patiently waiting. And Jesus continuously waited with His disciples. He didn't get mad at them. Sometimes He had to correct them, But He kept on waiting because He knew that eventually something good would happen. There would be a reward. God is patient. So, Is it worth waiting? Absolutely. Do not give up. If there's one takeaway from today, do not give up. Keep on waiting, because you never know when you will receive the revelation that will help you take the next step. Just when you're about to give up, that's when it usually happens. That's when the miracle comes. That's when you think that you've been struggling so long that you can't row anymore. That's when Jesus shows up. And that's when you get the help. Habakkuk says the following: what's God going to say to my questions? I'm braced for the worst. I'll climb to the lookout tower and scan the horizon. I'll wait to see what God says. I'll wait to see what God says. Isn't it funny that you're seeing what he's going to say? Just occurred to me. Anyway. And then God answered, write this, write what you see. Write it out in big block letters so that it can be read on the run. The vision message is a witness pointing to what's coming. It aches for the coming. Did you know that everything that God has promised to you is aching to become a reality? It's aching to take place in your life. It aches for the coming. It can hardly wait. And it doesn't lie. Whatever you have received from God does not lie. Wait for it. Wait for it. If it seems slow in coming, wait for it. It's on its way. It will come right on time. That's a promise you can hold on to. The Bible says it will come right on time if you wait for it. So keep on trusting God and wait for it. Wait for it. It's on its way. Amen.